I think we're on. I forgot to bring up the back end of the show so I can confirm that we're on.
I think
Are we on?
It says live.
Nope. I gotta tell YouTube this is not made for children. And now I can confirm that we are in fact on. It's Anytime with Ken and Alden. That was bad.
You tried though. And that's big for you. To even try the wordplay is very big for you.
Very big, very big. Buddy, how are you? Welcome to another Friday. We got people checking in like JMB, Steve, Laserbolt, David McKay, who says you are on. Matthew Stokes, Jared the Dark Jedi. Hook them kids, says Jared. Much love to Jared.
Matthew Stokes, Ryan, Eli's here. Good crowd. Good
crowd. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got to go check remember those disappearing comments. Ryan Mather says, how's it, Ken and Alden? Matthew's here. Star Wars and Galaxy, said Eli. Steve finally getting crushed. Steve's here from my blathering calls. We're going to have a fun day, buddy. Indeed. Laserbolt says, Ken made a pun. Don't remind me.
He did. Ken, unfortunately, as much as it pained him, had to admit that I am okay at making puns sometimes.
You came up with this one, tables, ladders, and votes, but also you had an entire list of word-based, I wouldn't even call them puns, but wordplay on wrestling and politics in our modern world.
Two parts of our society, for some people, just strictly entertainment. For some of us, key parts of our lives that have collided now and become one big shitstorm of old men with microphones, cutting promos on each other, making teams, talking about bleeding for Harris, talking about women's sports and like, Jesus, everything that comes with that. And we're going to discuss all of it. But banter, how are you? Busy day.
Good, man. A good busy day. Yeah, from here. What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. From here, I go straight to Force Center Live. Got our Halloween special episode coming today, Spooky Star Wars Celebration. Then I wrap that up, hopefully sober up, and I drive over to Smokehouse for a birthday dinner. It's Jed Miro's birthday today.
Bread? You getting the bread?
Getting that cheese bread. And then from there, I head to Flappers. I actually have to leave the birthday dinner early. I got a big show of Flappers tonight. Jimmy Brogan, Carol Lafer headlining the show. I'm on it tonight in the main room, 8 p.m. Flappers. If you're local, come on out. Big day, buddy, but it starts with you.
Hell yeah. You're going to have like no voice by the time you are driving to Flappers. You might just have to do pantomime on stage tonight.
Oh, some mime work? That'll work.
Yeah.
Space work?
Just get in touch with all of those like early improv group skills, you know? Start mirroring somebody else on stage and see what happens.
Give me a place to work, and I'll do a wacky scene. I'll do a wacky scene.
Yeah, Eli, Jared, we're gonna talk about it. We'll mention it. Arnold Palmer.
Arnold Palmer's wing wang.
Arnold Palmer apparently well endowed, or was.
Was.
I guess.
I've heard that.
Congratulations to him, I guess. And then, we're at the point now where it's like. Oh, he's talking about Hitler? Well, that's bad. Oh, he's talking about Arnold Palmer? That's also bad, but weird. And I think we should talk more about the Hitler thing, which is kind of Jon Stewart's point, right?
Yes.
His Daily Show piece this week was like, yes, the McDonald's thing was bad, but holy shit, can we talk about this enemy within rhetoric instead of McDonald's?
Yeah.
McDonald's. Shout out to McDonald's PR team who are having a blast over the past couple of weeks. With E. coli and Trump.
Their E. coli, Trump. I think I just missed that. I think the E. coli would have come to Camarillo. I was leaving a wedding Sunday. Had a great time. Jill and Sean Sullivan. Great wedding. A lot of fun. But Sunday, woke up hungover, left. It's about an hour drive home, and there was McDonald's, and I stopped. And I almost got a quarter pounder, which is not my normal order. And it was too late for breakfast. And so I got my normal number 7, the 2 cheeseburgers, Alden. Great meal. But I was like, maybe I'll do a quarter pounder and a McChicken, both hands. And God intervened, Alden. God intervened, and I didn't get E. coli.
Do you think it was God? Do you think God wastes time and his holy agenda with protecting the McDonald's customer?
No, look, that's what I omnipotent. omnipotent Jerry the Cannon Junkie, if he was here, he would go back to his altar boy days and tell you that I don't know if he was an altar boy. God is concerned about what's going on in Ukraine, but also if I'm going to order a quarter pounder. That's his secret. That's his power. And I was stopped that day.
I'm proud of you. Did you at least enjoy the cheeseburgers?
I did. I always enjoy the cheeseburger. Steve says, talk about the Hitler thing. This is supposed to be on our 2024 bingo card. Yet here we are. I did enjoy the cheeseburgers and the French fries. And I got a Diet Coke, which normally I just go water, buddy. I go water. That Diet Coke can be an activator, but I needed the caffeine. It was a good day. Such a good wedding. I was up to 4 a.m. You'd be so proud of me, buddy. One of the final songs is Pink Pony Club. And we not only danced to it, but we did like a group karaoke to it.
Yes.
It was amazing. It was
You have to. It brings us all together. Chapel, speaking of bringing people together, you saw that viral video of Elton John, Joni Mitchell, Chapel Roan. Like it's like a whole dressing room full of icons sitting there singing I'm Still Standing. And it's like that type of stuff. And speaking of, I rewatched Rocket Man last night, just coincidentally on 2 Elton
Rocket Man.
tangents. Okay. That movie fucking rules. I don't know if you ever watched it.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Excellent.
Okay. I'll give it a go.
Excellent. Like legit, like, because there's a level, I think, of people like put biopics in a box of like, it's okay, I guess, like Bohemian Rhapsody is very much, I think, like it's okay. Like we all know like how much Brian and Roger politicked the movie, and
the victor history is written by the victors, unfortunately.
100%. Whereas like with Rocket Man, Elton was like, oh yeah, let me tell you about the awful stuff I did, that they did, that my parents did. Like it's so honest, but it's done like in a true Hollywood movie musical style. So it's not like performances. Like they place Elton's discography in a way that it lets people see, like when Bernie and Elton fight at the height of Elton's drug use. Right. They split the song up in a way that can be conversational. It's really smart.
I'm gonna check it out. Who is Elton again? Who plays Elton?
Taron Egerton.
That's right. Not Taylor Edgerton. Not Taylor Egerton.
Not Taron Egerton. Not Uncle Owen. Joel Edgerton.
Joel Edgerton. Okay.
Different guys.
I got
Different
it.
guys.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the show.
Talented. Yeah, we're trying to figure out which Egerton we're talking about. Brian Fantasy says, I got a bar band on Broadway in Nashville to play Pink Pony Club last night. Hell yeah. Good stuff.
I love it. And I know her music reaches outside of maybe intended circles. I bring that up a lot only because I get the conversation behind that. But she's everywhere, and it should be. And we had so much fun on that dance floor. There is video footage with not only of that, I don't think of that, but of some footage got out of Mark Ellis and I dancing together. We did a dance, but there's full footage out there somewhere. I think Molly Damon might have it. Occasionally, Molly
I also
pops
noticed.
in the chat. So if she's
I also
here,
noticed that you rocked the Alden Diaz all black with a pink tie. That's what I used to wear when I did high school debate because I was trying to be different.
Resolved. We all should dance to this song now, not later.
Oh yeah,
I did. Yeah. That's all I do. I don't even own suit slacks anymore. So I'm always dark black jeans, shirt, colored tie of some sort, jacket, and then I wore the leopard print Converse. Very popular choice that night.
Those are super cool. That's a good. It's you got to know the audience too. Like you're going to a wedding with cool people. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go to a wedding with lame as fuck people. Like if it's like your cousin's wedding or like whatever it is. I'm sure you've even been to some. I'm sure in town that probably happens. We're not gonna name these people.
I generally everyone and had great fun at the Emma and Gabe wedding at the beginning of the month. But I was thinking it's funny you mentioned that. About 20 years ago, I had a family wedding that was, and by the way, they're still married. 3 kids they had kids early by plan. They were like, we're gonna have them early so that we can have our 40s to ourselves, and kind of ended up being the case, which is weird. But it was a paint by numbers wedding that had no spirit to it, right? Like it did. The service was good. The suite. The dad cried. They played an acoustic version of the end credit song from Princess Bride, and then
Wait, really?
yeah. Whatever, you know the song. You know the song.
Our love is like a storybook
story.
story.
That's exactly it.
I thought
Exactly
that
it.
was forgotten to time. And I will sing that to myself sometimes, and I have forever. And no one ever gets it.
It's not like it's a bad song. I think, isn't it like Mark Knopfler? It's like it's great. But it was like, imagine your cousin's wife dad sing like, your love is like a storybook story, and just like you're in the church like, oh, okay.
And it's not even like you're sloshed enough to like laugh at it. You just have to
can't, because everyone's like, it is like a storybook story, and they're all crying. And it was good, but so that there was all the emotion, but like I remember even like my mom, we were leaving, and she was like, there wasn't any spirit there. It was just like this is what you do. You do this, and then you dance, and then you have food, and then you have cake, and you go home. Yeah. This weekend was not like that. 4 a.m. We were all up as a group to like 4 a.m. back at the hotel.
That's so awesome. That's how you have to do it. 100%. I don't know who the next wedding situation is going to be. If anyone in the chat would like to propose to somebody and invite me and Ken, feel free.
Yeah. I don't know, because any weddings I get invited to are like this, where it's like not necessarily my direct tiny circle. It's just people I know and love over the years. So I'm wide open. Invite me to your wedding.
Yeah, and then like Joseph's already married, Jennifer's already married, so that takes out the Force Center crowd that's already taken care of.
Yep.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. Jared. I know I have a standing invite to Jared's. He's not engaged yet, but when it happens, I know that I'm gonna beat Jared in trivia at his wedding.
I think that's good.
We haven't talked about that, but just to humble him.
I think it was good. Yeah, it was a good time. Good time.
That's
good time. Ellis officiated, home run of an officiation again. It was great because some of the people, I think on Jill's side of the family, Jill was telling me, didn't know that they knew Mark Ellis from the radio, KLOS, not from Schmoedown, not from stand up. So when they got there and they were like, holy bleep, that's that radio guy. And then one was driving. And Thursday, Mark says on the radio, I got to go do a wedding in Camarillo this weekend. And someone was like, I'm driving there. So it was a weird, wonderful vibe. And Mark and I were the zaddies of the dance floor.
That's powerful. And also great use of zaddy. A word so Gen Z that even I don't say it. But I also think like there's something cool there with like the Mark element of it. Not him specifically, but like when you expose your IRL family to the world of online, but in live action, like they're in front of them. It's very like they start to take it seriously almost. Like, the little trivia thing you were doing, like these are real friends that you have.
Real friends. It worked. That's my life. You hanging in there, buddy? We can get into conversations because I think you've got stuff going on in your brain.
Yeah, I'm trying to even think of anything that I did this past weekend. I watched a bunch of movies. I vegged out, just trying to get through it. Wrestling, but wrestling kept rearing its head. And Ken, you have always had at least in the time I've known you, I would say a healthy relationship with your love of it, where it's like you worked in it, you've loved it all your life, you still keep it in the corner of your eye, even if you're not like watching Raw anymore and things like that. But like, you know what's going on, you know the talent. But even in our like 5-6 years of friendship, we don't talk about it, I would say, a lot. And when we started this channel, it was never meant to be a focus, but it keeps rearing its head, especially this year. And it keeps coming up. And like part of it is that the business is on a boom for the first time in 20 years. So like that's part of it. Yeah, it's just everywhere. It's going to be on Netflix now. Like in January, even more people will talk about Raw because it'll be on Netflix.
I'll probably watch it a little bit more because it'll be easier for me to watch. Yeah.
Throw it on, just have it on while you're working, whatever. So part of it is just like, it's coming up. But then part of it is also these wrestlers. And for some of them, these carnies. And for some of them, these undead people. They have opinions, which they've always had. And I think we should start by establishing there is an assumption, I think, sometimes that the whole business is conservatives or and that's
I'd say weird libertarians.
yeah, it might not dominate, but like historically, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a different time now, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of left-leaning younger talent, and then there's a whole conversation to be had about the generational divide. But slowly over this election season, we noticed a steady build. So we had Hulk Hogan come out, and he's MAGA mania, and he's there at the RNC, and then Ventura counters by talking rightfully so about their union history or lack thereof, Tim Walz's service, all these things that Ventura is knowledgeable about, and he battles and endorses Harris, right? And also, we should note former governor Jesse Ventura,
former governor, former governor.
So he actually has weight to what he's saying in a different way. And that's 1v1, and then it was like, okay. And then you have to add in the fact that Kane is already a Republican mayor in Knoxville County. Is it the mayor? Knox County, Tennessee, I think it is. Someone could correct me on that.
Yeah.
Because they have county mayors in a way that not all states do.
Tennessee.
And so Kane, Glenn Jacobs, formerly known as the Demon Kane, he obviously in the Trump camp, was very pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine in a weird way, and just a weirdo. And then on the other side, you've had people that aren't directly involved in what we're discussing, but have always been vocal, like CM Punk and Sami Zayn and different people talking about Palestine and all this stuff. And so it was clear that there was a divide happening in the business in a big way, especially Logan Paul having Trump on and being, and this just kept building until now this week, it finally really solidified and felt like teams had forged when Kevin Nash, formerly Diesel, also known as Big Sexy,
and Oz.
These are
and Vinny Vegas.
These are real people, everybody. Is it not to be confused with fake Diesel, who was Kane, I think.
Yeah, he was. Yes.
In a weird connection there. Yeah. Diesel comes out, Nash, on Twitter and says a picture of him and Foley in a hardcore match. It says we would bleed for the VP, Harris all the way, or something like that. And then Foley, who has left Twitter but still has a YouTube channel, posted a pretty well put together. I just thought he would just be talking into his phone, but no, he was mic'd up. He was at a chair, had the footage edited in, at different angles, and he I was gonna say he cut a promo, and it kind of is, but it's a 4-minute explanation from different angles, mostly anti-fascist angles of think about what is being said, etc., etc. And he names the Undertaker and includes clips from Taker's Trump interview, and so it exploded into wrestling, even more so than maybe standard Hollywood is infighting, because standard Hollywood everyone endorses and they move on, but they don't fight each other. But wrestlers do. Right.
Yeah. And then you got your Bayos, your Sorbos, and those, and currently Zach Levi just burying a grave,
and everyone ignores him.
Burying himself in a grave. Well, I have people who are really close friends with him. I haven't seen in a while. I'm waiting to catch up with them.
I met him once, and he was very kind.
Very kind.
But he just
been around him a lot.
Interesting twist.
Also, none of this seems too surprising. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah. And so here we are.
In that sense of when the nice, well-meaning and actually good-intentioned, that Christian conservative friend you had that leans in. Yeah, that's Zach. Anyways, but going back to wrestling.
No, but then gets duped, and that's it gets duped, and whatever happened to him, and with wrestling, it's there is the element to these people that they are also characters for so long that they do start to bleed in and out of reality and who is who, and these guys all have not a single person except for maybe Mick Foley that I named in this entire thing, and Logan Paul actually goes by their real name. So it's there's this level of pseudo reality, but in a Trumpian era is almost more reality. And I texted you and I said, maybe everything is fake and wrestling is real. And
life is a work. Life is a work. I sell those t-shirts on TeePublic. You can get them. Life is a work.
Yeah. And it's strange. And so I guess I want to start by asking you, I'm not even going to ask you, how do you feel? Are you surprised? Because I know you're not surprised. And that's the thing. I don't think a lot of this is surprising. you've been in the business. We could put together who believed what. You know, if you've paid attention to Taker over the last 10 years, you could put it together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But how does it feel for you to see gloves off? We're naming each other. It's all out there while the Fed is under federal investigation. The Fed is going after the Fed while new people are being named all the time. While some of these people won't are almost afraid to turn coat on Vince because he's like their father in a weird carny way.
Yeah. Yeah, none of this. It's all bizarre because this is where we're at, but it's also perfect for the times, and without a doubt, the politics in wrestling have, you cut promos, you do run-ins, October surprises or swerves. You can life can be discussed in pro wrestling. So in one way, this week has just been bizarre, and I was even texting you. I texted you that thing about how weird it was for me to see Eminem at a Harris rally bringing out Obama, and I have no skin in the Eminem game, right? I was there. I remember his explosion and everything, but I just wasn't too much of a fan. Well, not my style of music, whatever. But here he is saying things I support and believe in, and then that's retweeted by Dominic Hasek, who is who's like a French Canadian. He's a Canadian, but he was a big NHL goalie for the Detroit Red Wings. So for my young adult years, the name Dominic Hasek means something. It's like a big NHL player, and he's retweeting Eminem, going, "Thank you for standing up for the city and the beliefs that I was in that city my whole career." And I just tweeted him like, "This is bizarre in the most what time we're in." Mm-hmm. I don't recall this. Obviously endorsements and stuff in the past. I remember when The Rock showed up at the RNC, but the WWE also, they sent him there, and they forget who, but they sent someone to the DNC. Like, it was a weird promotional opportunity. You're always going to have that, but that we're just out and out, like this is it, and that it kind of matters. And I think that's the thing. I'll kick back to you quick, where this isn't to be written off by me. Mick Foley's promo, if you will, was, I thought, great. I thought it was also not just the fascist stuff, but also going, hey, because it's one of the things I've had conversations with some people about this thing that Trump and Trump Industries have done of just like not paying their workers, forcing you to sue them, but they know you can't afford it. So eventually, if you they'll settle for far less than they owed you, and this is this thing that's happened to them. And for Mick to concentrate on that, speaking directly to the blue collar workers, because historically, not always true, it's a generalization, but historically that's been wrestling's audience. And in fact, wrestling's had a connection with those people. We are the outsiders in that way. Everyone looks down at you. You're the steel worker who has your Friday nights at a wrestling arena in Texas or Ohio or this or that. There's a connection there. And this guy has been destroying your world. And I thought that was so it's like, it is important because people, whether they care or not, do listen. Sadly, some of them are listening to The Undertaker, which is a whole nother thing. But anyways, your thoughts on it mattering.
And I also think it's about who, right? Like, The Rock has always been this weird, I don't want to say like enigma, because we know he's historically been a Republican, but like he's always been like Republican by sheer virtue of the fact that he's one of the, you get so rich, so you have to be Republican. Like that very like old, the classic idea that pre-MAGA, like, oh, of course you are, that. And in the MAGA era, he's been very careful to never ever show his cards. It just that he did that one stupid ass interview either early this year or late last year where he was something about division and whatever. But like, so you get those people where it's like, I'll never know because it's such a public facing persona that's so well refined. Cena as well, where it's like Cena is actually the best at it. There's not a single dent in his armor either way. You don't know. You really don't know. But for Foley to come out, like the persona of Foley matters, I think too, because in his own industry, he was looked down on for being like too regular, too overweight, or too unrefined, or too everyman, and all these things. And I think that will land for some people. Oh yeah, The Rock endorsed Joe. Okay, and but then what did he say? He walked back the endorsement.
But this time it was like, it cost me.
It cost me. I regret adding to the division was kind of his angle. And so I think it matters that Foley did it because there's a lot of, I think sometimes like forgetting your roots, or forgetting that comes with like people that achieve a certain level of success. Like Foley was a young guy who came from nothing from the Northeast, and Taker was a young guy who came from nothing in Texas. And it's like, because you have success now and you're just gonna like isolate yourself and just like forget basic principles. Like for people that are all about like honor and all about the business and all about etiquette, so they say. It's just I think that's some of what some of the undertones I think are a little bit like, who do you, especially for people in the industry looking at him because they all respected him.
Taker for a lot of, you hear the stories. I think there's good reason to respect him during his wrestling days, outside of real world aside, because of what you're talking about. I think that's a great point for Foley to come in and kind of say, for someone who was looked up to, who was, as you said last week when we discussed it, a judge in the WWE locker room's kangaroo court. Like he's, you hear even in the McMahon doc, him talking about this in 2024 on the record saying, I didn't like the curtain call, the Madison Square Garden curtain call. That was not good. That was it. He's got that, and that speaks to me because a lot of people I know in my life are people I look up to, or who have showed me a lot of integrity, or who raised me, and then they put that all aside for this guy, the orange guy. It's insane to me, and so I really like that Foley kind of was getting at that angle.
And it's also different. I think the reason why Undertaker getting involved and so directly, and like we should say, we don't expect everybody to have seen it. So it's like, if you want to go watch the interview for some ungodly reason, you can. But the main piece of it was all this transphobic bullshit that happened with him bringing his daughter out. It's Taker, his co-host, whatever the fuck his name is, Donald Trump, and then Taker's daughter sitting there, whose mother is also a wrestler, Michelle McCool. And they met through work. And so he's got his daughter there basically as a prop, just to try to make, because as we all know, Taker would never leave his daughter alone with Donald Trump in his heart of hearts. Like I firmly believe that these people know that deep down. Like I'd have to believe that. And so he brings her out as this prop to make this bullshit point about women's sports that we've heard 1,000 times, that we just heard with all the Olympics controversy. And mind you, all those people, J.K. Rowling, Logan Paul, all these people are now involved in legal trouble and are being sued because what they said was demonstrably false and a lie. And that stuff comes up again in this conversation. They start talking about these demonstrably false lies, this slander, because it is slander because it was said. It was libel when it was on Twitter. These people are just engaging in bullshit rhetoric, completely based in hate, and are masking it as them doing something righteous, which is the whole thing with the MAGA movement. And I think the reason why Taker being a bigot and being MAGA lands in a different way than Hulk Hogan is because of the respectability, because Hogan has been fuck Hulk Hogan for about 25 years. And for a long time that was insulated to wrestling hardcores. Wrestling hardcores knew Hogan stories. But he rode through the 2000s pretty well liked. Hogan Knows Best and like all that stuff. Like he had an era.
I think it was after that show Hogan kind of was the beginning of the end. I think
the beginning of the end for sure. That's when the marriage trouble started and the above the love spot, all that controversy. But Hogan, like when I was a child, was still really beloved. But if you asked your uncle or something who'd watch wrestling back in the day, he'd be like, Hogan, he's not that great. But Taker was like, it was a perfect legacy until he fucking started talking. And that's why it becomes a whole different thing.
Once he broke his own kayfabe. Yeah, and I think it's just, it's not been surprising. Like you said, it's been gradual, but it goes from things that I can understand. I know it first came out after, there's 5 or 6 Dallas police officers shot and killed in an incident, and he kind of was supportive of that. That's one of the things where you go, okay, you're from the region, you're this and that, all right, you're pro law enforcement, that's not abnormal, blah, 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 blah. And then it's just, but that's an indicator for what's the slide. Like Jared in chat says, Zachary Levi sharing Jordan Peterson clips. That's been the path for some of my friends too. You go from that, and then, you slide down real fast to where suddenly you're bringing your daughter out on a thing and going, we must fight for female sports. And then you and the former president literally just repeat the same lies that everyone that's in trouble.
It's really, it's because, there's something that's it's really important to me that you protect. And hey, but what about your boss who like made women in a sport torture themselves and have to do degrading things for 30 years? He's got nothing for that. None of them ever do. And the only people that would ever like actively speak out on that aren't there. They don't work,
Yeah.
or they're dead. Like there's
Yeah.
the clip of Roddy going around,
Yeah. Yeah.
low key exposing Patterson, which is devastating to watch.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah,
to watch.
yeah. No, that, yeah. Oh, and I met Pat Patterson several times. So every year at the CAC, Patterson was there, and loved. Yeah, I wonder what. Yeah, I wonder what Piper would be. His relationship with Vince was always off and on, and I just wonder if he was still alive. Wish he was. Where he might be one of those permanently F him guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm never going back types, and like, and you know, the sad thing is that when people say like, oh, everybody comes back, they're not wrong. Like everybody does,
Not wrong, but
whether it's for money or for trying to find peace or you know, when Warrior and Brett both came back, it was kind of like, okay, they can get anybody. Like they can really get anybody back. Ventura now, CM Punk. You know, it's hard to find like the true holdout that would actually speak their truth, and they have in their employ right now, you know, CM Punk and Sami Zayn, both of whom having to find different avenues and different ways to support Palestine, and either through low key image only posts with no caption, or Punk, you know, saying stop genocide in his MMA commentary or whatever it is. And they have to run around and hide and like try to be careful with how they support what they're doing. But then these fuckers over here can just like say lies and like still get paid and still get put on posters and everything. And it's like, that's why it becomes hard to think that like there will be any change at that organization until all the heads roll, which seems like that might be the way it's going.
It might be the way it's going. Yeah.
The investigations.
Yeah, it might be the way it's going. Yeah. No, it's but this is why I'll go back to how it is more important now. And that's the time we are in, and because this went beyond just the walls of politics. I think where this is who you are, and that's why over, you know, when I started the digital media world, like I still enjoy not talking about politics at times. Blathering doesn't always be political. Often it's just stupid stuff. But that's also why I like having with you. So I get that. But 10 years ago, it was the norm. And then after a while, especially in the film world and covering the movie news, it just became painfully obvious that this is all, life is politics. Politics is how we decide to come together and take care of the least of us. And if you don't have a thought on that, and when you're covering stories about it, when the Me Too movement explodes, and it's in the movie world, you know, when the biggest, most known, most successful producers of all time is in the clink for this stuff, and you're not covering it on your show, it becomes painfully obvious. And so that leads to, we need Mick Foley to say something. We need Batista to say something. It does matter. It does matter, because it's not a silly, simple little game anymore that you could write off. And it's still frustrating me when I do run into or see people that are just kind of like, it's not even both sides in it, but just still have that cynical, none of this matters, in an overall sense, right?
Yeah, because it's like you have to be realistic about it. And it's like, I always want to give some grace to like I don't give grace to both sidesers, but I do give grace to does any of this matter people, because I fall into that, and I think we all do. You know, when
the electoral college conversation has a lot about that, and you know, 100%. I get it.
And also just like
in politics, a dirty game. Yeah.
We haven't really touched on the show just because of timing and stuff, but like the very noticeable Democrats right now, their strategy, in my opinion, is fucking stupid. And that they came out from, you know, replacing Biden, got a huge momentum boost there. Then picking Walz, even bigger momentum boost there. DNC went mostly really well for them. And then right after, there was this tonal shift, which has slowly solidified. And it has become clear that the Democrats think that the best winning strategy is to be better Republicans than the Republicans. And it is so weird to me. Like Kamala this week saying, making fun of Trump, not for wanting to build the wall, but for not finishing it. And then being like, and the 2% he took a photo with was the part Obama built. And everyone, rightfully so, was like, remember 8 years ago when we all agreed that the wall was evil and fascist? And like, we were all like, you know, no one is illegal. Remember, no one is illegal? You remember like how build a wall chants were like an early sign of how horrible this was, and now you're like, no, we will crack down at the border and do it better. And also, and here's Dick Cheney to tell you how. Like, it's so weird that they are like so embarrassed and ashamed of their own base that like Cheney and Liz Cheney and wall building and all this big tent shit gets said. And everybody's welcome in the tent unless you're representing Palestine, then you're not welcome. And you know, Cheney's cool, but let's go beat the fuck out of some protesters. But then tell you that this is the most important election of our lives, and we must defeat MAGA. However, when we win, we will have Republicans in our cabinet. Like, I just don't understand, for the life of me, the placating and the like, instead of energizing your own, going after theirs. So all that to say, I get the hopelessness. I'm still gonna vote.
Yeah. No, you're like Elliot on Internet Today. I don't think it makes sense to you because you weren't a Republican your entire life, where I was. Where to me, I hear it and I go, yep. This is probably speaking to people that I know.
Do you think they're getting them though? Do you?
Yeah,
I really want. I want to
so.
know.
Yeah, I think so. Because again, I didn't switch because I got yelled at on Twitter, or we talked about anything specific on Force Center. I got switched slowly over the course of time by just having the ability to grow. Not going to work for everyone. And by the way, I want to say I'm not countering you by saying you're not right about what you're feeling. Again, my friend Elliot, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but over at Internet Today, he and Ricky, one of my favorite shows, they talk about this daily, and it clearly lost some energy and momentum, and it clearly might be a bad strategy. So I want to make sure I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I do, as someone who has, we're talking 44 years of my life was on that side in that tent. It does make sense.
And I want to hear. I want to know that it's working. Like if they manage to win this, and then after we get interviews and panels of people being like, I listened and you know, and I was a Bush Republican waiting for a chance to have a respectable. God, I hope they're right. I want the people that know more and do this for a living to know more and do it for a living than you know, like,
and again, and I want to be clear, like, you know, you're not alone, and this creates some of that malaise, and everyone's shouting. I try not to be the one shouting in the situation. I don't think you are either, but you know, because then you can dismiss a lot of your thoughts, fears, worries by just waving it away, and I don't know if it reaches anyone. That's the other frustrating thing. Is that I was leaving Camarillo, which is an hour north of LA. LA County is probably, you know, I know it's blue in a lot of what you leave Hollywood, you drive over Barham into Burbank where I'm at, it's mostly conservative. And you drive an hour north to Camarillo, Moore Park, Simi Valley. As I was leaving, heading back home, there was a 8x8 truck, like giant truck, all covered in Trump 24 with a, if you vote for Kamala Harris, stay back 500 feet sign on the back of the truck, and a 6 to 7 foot pole with a like iron American eagle on the top. Just driving on the freeway.
Yeah, baby.
And I don't think that person is going to listen to anything the Democrats say, whether it's you're weird because it's weird, or hey, you have some ideas I like. And that's where my cynicism might come in too, and where you and I can struggle through that together, different views on it. Where I'm like that's there's so many of that, and there's so many of those guys in that truck. And by the way, it was a guy because I didn't need to look. Who are going, yeah, Taker, the American badass. You're right. You got to protect women's sports. Like, and I don't know how to combat that
because all of these guys really care about women's sports. Obviously, you know, like they all watched the WNBA before they had attractive superstars that were being totally. They absolutely did.
Yeah, and so to say about the malaise, I get it. And like I said, I want to make it clear, I'm not refuting or disagreeing with anything you're saying overall. I can understand it, and I think, and I'm not just saying it as it's an older generation. I'm just saying as someone who, you know, I was not politically active, but it was like every day was surrounded by all those kind of folks. I do think some kind of calmness and reason can win some of them over. enough, at least in this next election. But it's also not as fun and not as
I liked
secure.
Walls on Daily Show because John pressed him on Cheney, and then Walls tried to get out of it. He pressed him on Cheney, and Walls was like, "Well, Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift," and John was like, "No, no, 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 no."
Yeah,
Do we have to do? He really drilled him, and I was I was proud of John. He needs my fucking endorsement, but like, and Walls gave probably the best answer for something that I still viscerally disagree with, which I think is important to acknowledge. And he said, we need to give some of these people permission to do the right thing.
See, that, Alden, is something I do remember that part of the interview. I really agree with that. I'm glad you brought that up because that's my point. That's my point. I'm not saying that it's in terms of strategy. Like I got my ballot. Grace and I are going to do our voting this weekend, and I'm nervous as hell. Right? I'm nervous as hell. I'm nervous of the Electoral College.
I'm real nervous about what Grace is going to do. She's a teeter. Who knows?
And then you can, all that. But what Wall said there is something I believe wholeheartedly. Where if the idea is to not convince everyone to think like you, but just come together on some kind of agreements, it is that kind of thing of when I saw some people coming up who were cop friends of mine who were like, no, I vote Democrat because of this. Oh, okay, because I'm having some thoughts on that. Oh, I'm having some thoughts on gun control versus the other guys I work with who were like cleaning their AR-15s at work, which happened daily with me, going, nah, F them, we need our guns. That guy didn't give me the permission. And so that's the value to it. Does it work all the time? And I don't know. And I'm nervous going into less than 2 weeks. But anyways, I'm glad you brought that up, Alden, because that's kind of what I was trying to say to you, but that was in a shorter way.
No, I got you, man. I really do, and I don't disagree with you, and I don't even really disagree with it. Like, again, if it's a strategy that they think works and it does, great. But it's just when has it's just like one of those things where it's like, when has campaigning to the right worked? Didn't work for Hillary. And like we've like, when has it worked? We don't know. It doesn't seem like it ever has. And like, it just seemed like the energy you got was from like choosing Walls was because we could look at what Walls had done as governor and been like, that sounds like a dream presidency.
Yeah. Great choice.
And then you were like, and by the way, we're going to focus on the wall, and we're going to invite Liz up, and we're going to give Liz the microphone, and it's like, it does baffle me. I hope it wins.
I understand it, and I'm at a point in my life, thank God, where I can look at. I'm glad she's saying some of the things she has, but also 95% of the other things she's saying, I'm like, well, at some point we need to deal with that. I'm a fan of Adam Kinzinger. I don't know his policies in depth as I've heard others about Liz Cheney and stuff, but I at least like what he's doing. I even like Joe Walsh, former Tea Partyer, who I still disagree with on a lot of things, and his stance on he's I'd call him an anti-Palestinian speaker. But he's a great example of permission and trying to reach across, where he and Fred Gutenberg on their talks on gun control are pretty important and valuable. I think it's so fascinating, but at the end of the day, it's to bring it to sports. I'm watching. It's painful. It's painful for me to watch as a New York Yankee fan, but there's a great doc out right now on Netflix called The Comeback about the 2004 Red Sox, and they're in the 2003 season, and there's this great moment where the bunch of people kind of say the same thing. We had been beat by the Yankees for 80 years, including more specifically the last 6 years. We always came in second place. And when the moment we decided to not try to be like them and be ourselves, we won. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of where I pick up your vibe. And I agree with it.
That's actually a perfect framing. Yeah, that is kind of what I'm saying. And to connect it into the original wrestling framing, is that not what creates a great challenger? Is that not just in singles or in storylines? Like, I mean, a challenger brand. Like we saw, you were there. You were watching. I was shitting my diapers as a toddler. But like the Monday Night Wars, like how did Bischoff gain on them for that 83 weeks that he loves to talk about? It was by doing stuff they weren't doing.
Literally listing it, right?
Doing things they weren't doing. And AEW 2019 to 2021, the initial 3 years was like, wow, because they were doing stuff. And then they will even admit 2022 to 2023 was a bit of a stumble. I mean, they're certainly fine. They just got a mega TV deal, but like
Right.
they knew. Some of their stars have alluded to it. Like end of 2023 wasn't really where we want it to be, and it was when they had tried to let's take away the tunnels, let's do this, and they slowly started to try to WWEify visuals and certain things, and then the fans were kind of like, "Hey, we watched you because we like you."
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh shit, they liked us for real. Go back, go back,
Go back.
And they brought back the tunnels, and you have to. I mean, you've seen this even with, I'm sure, like digital media, like when everyone had the panel show, it's like, okay, how are you not like them? Why am I watching Movie Talk and not SJU or vice versa, or like that?
Yeah,
it's always something that you have to consider. And the Democrats need to be the Democrats, which in my lifetime they were for maybe a hot minute in 08. It was that's when it really felt like it. And since then it does feel like Republican original recipe versus MAGA Republican is not going to galvanize the youth vote,
and look and when the youth takes over, when the generational switch truly does happen, I'm curious to see what it'll be more like going forward in terms of campaigning and truth and just honest and 26, 27-year-old congressman, that kid out in Florida who is a kid, and what does he do? How does he use TikTok? How does he do this? I mean, you saw it with AOC showing up and Instagram Live and all that kind of stuff. That's just in terms of the mechanics. But then once the actual switch of how to do it, because that will happen, I think, at some point.
Yeah. And I wonder, and maybe this will be something to be worked on after. Maybe I'll have to hit up, Elliot or whoever and be like, what do you think about this? But like, there's something interesting where it's like, I did throw a rock. I don't want to be like, we know better and sit down, old man, because like
sure.
I'm trying to have more empathy for the olds, as I've talked about on this show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, stop. But there's something to be said, I think, for the, and I would like to pat myself on the back and say to is it thine own? No, that would be yours. To mine own credit.
Mine own.
I did not go on the I Told You So tour that I maybe wanted to when Biden stepped down, and I think a lot of the youth did, and I thought let's just do this, let's just win. But the situation with Biden stepping down and then us being the youth vote, wanting them to choose Walz, and then they did, two great decisions. And it just made me feel like maybe they'll realize they need to listen to the youth. And then they slowly didn't.
Thank you. Laserbolt agrees. You're throwing us old guys a bone. We really appreciate it.
But it's like, at what point are you going to realize maybe those youths had some good ideas and like we kind of need them? Because they clearly know they need them, but it's always like the last gasp. Like that's like the Pokemon Go to the polls with Hillary, where by that point we were all like, lady, at that point it's like you're fighting what should have been the easiest opponent to beat maybe ever, and the best you got is Pokemon Go to the polls and like some Ellen DeGeneres bits and things, and it's like I really need y'all to listen.
I think there's a desire to create the saxophone moment, not just from Hillary to Bill, but just like there's that everyone wants that cultural moment now, and it creates the McDonald's thing, which was hilarious, but also
you know what the best one of those was? It was when Obama was giving an address at the White House when Force Awakens was coming out, and they were about to screen Force Awakens at whatever theater does he have his own theater in the White House? I don't know. But he was about to go watch it, and then he ends the speech by being like, all right, I gotta go to Star Wars. That was organic. I believed he was going to watch it. I did not believe that Hillary Pokemon Go'd anywhere. Pokemon went.
That was that year too. We were all in our cars. I was in my car to help my friend trap Charajars or Sarajars and Wizarwards or whatever these damn Pokemons are.
That was the closest we've ever come to actual peace in our time.
I think so.
Of Pokemon Go.
It's so funny you say that, Alden. I think there could be some truth in that. It's one of those cultural moments, right? Because I don't know how it was where you were, but in LA in 2016 when that's happening, I mean, you would just be driving down the street and you'd see a group of 25 people standing just at a random spot, and you'd be like, "Oh, pull over! We got to get whatever they're." And it it was pure magic. It was joy. And like I said, I wasn't even a huge fan, but I'd be in my friend's car like, all right, let's go. Oh, we drive for like 45 minutes. Oh, there's a Pokemon in Santa Monica. Let's do it.
It was incredible. Yeah, it was. We would work. I would work closing shift at my job, and get off work like 10 or 11. Then we would go near the Hollywood Beach in South Florida, and there would be people all over the beach until the sun came up. Like police cars were rolling down, being like,
"Yeah,
all right, you guys need to disperse." And then like even the cops were like, they got to the point where they were like, "Oh, we know it's a Pokemon thing." Guys would. There would be like groups of cyclists, and they'd be cycling, and they'd come by, and they would yell "Pokemon Go!" like while they were like, it was just the best.
People going to other countries for exclusive Pokemon. So yeah, the Comic-Con that year, there was a rumor that there was going to be one release down by the Bayfront, the Hilton Bayfront, and like thousands of people there, and it was just a rumor, it wasn't true, and they had to like disperse it. It was fascinating.
I starred a couple comments here.
Okay.
One, Eli. Let's start with Eli. Eli. My vote has been counted. Very excited. My first presidential election. Eli,
nice.
For
right you age. And Danica Patrick.
Yeah.
So happy a 42-year-old woman decided to finally make a stand and vote for Trump.
And when I looked into her a little bit, I quickly realized that she had been previously in a romantic relationship with Aaron Rodgers, which made a lot of sense.
Oh, it made a lot of sense. Yeah.
That made a lot of sense to me. Matthew Stokes has live stream for the count. If you want to watch me and Ken descend into levels of depression that have never been recorded on this channel, that's how you do it.
It's so funny. So Matthew, I actually had this. I was like, I wonder if the show that you and I launched a year ago, this would have been a no-brainer. Like we would have had. It was our work. We've changed the show a little bit for now as we figure out what we want to do a little bit in our lives, not just the shows. I was like, I should text Alden. And then, yeah. Here's the thing. I think you'd know. I don't know. I think it's going to be down to the bitter end, right? That's the problem. And at one point, Trump's going to come out and be like, I won. And it's, dude, it's 6 o'clock. What are you doing? But I think you will know early the vibe, right? Because that's my memory of 2016 when I was definitely less politically aware and active. But did not vote for him and came off the set at Movie Talk. And I walked out, all 4 or 5 of us, whatever, because there was always 4 of us on the panel. And then the head guy made sure to hire some attractive woman who wasn't allowed to speak unless she was delivering the news to him. And then we all walked in and the news was on and Schnepp, God bless Schnepp, was there. And Schnepp was like, it's not good. It's not good. And I just remember thinking, oh, like 10 votes are in. Like, don't worry about it. But the vibe. Yeah. The vibe of this horrible thing was there early.
Yeah.
And that's my worry on November 4th this year.
2016, while that was happening over there with you guys at the office, I was here in Florida, and I remember in my mom's apartment sitting there, and my cousin had been in town and had purchased and not drank a 6-pack of Smirnoff Ice, like those green apple, but in like glass beer bottles or whatever. Just a gross beverage, just a disgusting beverage. And I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll drink one of these. And we're watching the coverage, and then I drank another one. Then I drank another one. So I drank 3 of these things, and I'm feeling a little woozy. And then my mom starts to doze off, and it's not looking good. It's just not looking good. I think California had just come in, which was a foregone conclusion, of course. And then my mom started to fall asleep, and I'm like, Mom, you gotta stay awake for this, thinking, of course, still holding on to hope. Like, I want my mom to see a woman become president, on that sentimental level. And then my mom says, no, I can't stay awake. And she goes, wake me up if Hillary wins, or when Hillary wins, she said. And I said,
when?
What if she doesn't? And my mom, I'll never forget, my mom goes, don't wake me up.
Ever.
And I sat there alone, drank this whole 6-pack of green apple, whatever the fucks, and just descended into misery. And I remember texting at that time, it was my fairly new girlfriend, and I was like, hey, I just I understand if you don't want to talk, and she was just crying, and it was a whole thing. And then in 2020, I'm living with that girlfriend, and I felt like I was like an animal gnawing on cage bars. Like I was like, I remember just being like, call a state, somebody call a state already. Like, I was full of rage. So now this time, like, look, I'm down to do it. I don't know if it's going to work schedule wise. I will show up for it. But it would be, miserable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have Gracie's sisters are going to be out. We're going to have it on, but I get glued to it. Even it's always an historic event to me. Our presidential elections are always historic. So I've always sat up and watched all of them. Even when I had less, worry about them. But yeah, we'll see. This is one of those things of like, I might want to keep it to myself.
Yeah.
Not share it with the public.
How about this? Let's say Harris wins. Then maybe possibly you'll get a happy show that week.
Yeah, happy show. Or we'll go live. We'll just go live. Yeah.
We'll go live with Victory Celebration playing because, for the record, Victory Celebration is better than Yub Nub.
There you go.
There's only 1/3 of Force Center here to stop me from saying it.
And it's a third that agrees with you. So, and Joseph too. Poor Jennifer was outnumbered on that day.
She
Will
held her
McClain,
own.
and I know you got. She did. I mean, she's a great. She could be a lawyer if she wanted.
Great subjective war fighter.
And you got some other questions started. We'll get to that. Will McClain, what's your election results watching channel? I flip around, and I'll even go to Fox. I'll flip around. Back in the day, Tim Russert was my guy. Rest in peace, Tim Russert. I'll watch the CNN John King. I'll watch the MSNBC clicker guy. I'll watch them all. It's a flip around kind of thing. And then occasionally I always try. It sounds like I'm trying to be smarter than I am. But you check on a BBC News or something like that just to see what the world's saying. But I don't care. I don't care if it's corporate media news. They do a good job of turning it into a sport, unfortunately, which might be part of the problem over the last 30 years. But I flip around. You?
I flip around, and with the social component of it, it's become like you're looking at two screens. So you're like flipping on one screen, scrolling on another screen. It's chaos. I mean, thankfully, Kornacki has given us someone to rally around.
That's the guy, right? That's the new guy. That's
Kornacki is the guy. People, all the memes of like, Kornacki. They said all the code words. They activated Kornacki.
Yeah,
like the Winter Soldier. Like, it's his time. We take him off ice. It's his time to break things down. He's really good at it.
Yeah, he's kind of the Russert of his day. And Russert would do it like a whiteboard. Damn Buffalo Bills fan. Yeah.
Real quick, this is just a little sentimental aside. Matthew Stokes brings up, Schnepp. You brought up John Schnepp, the late great legend of geekdom. I would like to point out something for Matthew Stokes and for everybody. John Schnepp is in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is something that I'd forgotten about until I rewatched the movie a couple of weeks ago. And in the iconic scene, one of my favorite scenes in movie history, of Ferris on the parade float singing Twist and Shout. If you look at your screen to the left in the crowd, there's a young John Schnepp from Chicago jumping up and down, singing, dancing, and everything. So if you miss John Schnepp, he does live forever the greatest day in high school movie history.
Yeah, he does. There
was something else here that it's just people getting mad at me for saying Victory Celebration is better. It is. Kingsport Cal had a comment here that Smirnoff Ice is better than White Claw.
Oh, that's the worst thing said today.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can endorse that. I don't know.
Kingsport Cal.
And David McKay says that my mom's been asleep ever since. No, actually, my mom's woken up. My mom's woken up, like ideologically. Like in that time, I have pretty much single-handedly dragged my mom from being a run-of-the-mill like Hillary Dem to like in 2020, my mom was supporting Bernie, and now my mom, like, you'll hear my mom just like angrily looking at her phone, being like, "This motherfucker, this like I think I radicalized her. I really do think I did."
That's great.
This is coming soon. We'll talk about it at the end. Rings of Power season 2. We'll talk about that.
Well, no. He talked about Rings of Powder, which is our cooking show we're going to start.
Ooh, that's actually Dan. That's a good idea for you. The Rings of Powder. That's good. That's really good.
Love that.
And then I start this from Svetnik 1138,
Svetnik.
which
Yeah,
I just love. I love that username so much.
Am
Am I naive in thinking it's all for real in the name of bipartisanship and wanting to bring the country together? I don't think it's naivete. I think that's hope. I think that is a hopeful thing to think. I wouldn't even say counter. My response to that would be, it's hard for me to believe it when they don't even believe it either, because it is the doublespeak of they are fascists, which she is now on the record saying she does think this. Kamala Harris asked point blank on video, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist? Yes. He's a fascist. You know, they did this X, Y, and Z, all this stuff, and everything that they've said about most important election of our lives, the Howard Stern interview, them bonding over the fact that they're losing sleep, thinking that democracy is at stake, all these things. And then at the same time, they're like, we'll have one in our cabinet and Big Tent and all this stuff, which, like, yeah, they in their minds might be rationalizing it as there's the MAGA cult and there's the Republican Party. But reality will tell you that the Republican Party doesn't even think that. Not anymore.
Right.
The maybe the Republican base, the Republican electorate, you know, people that we've talked about today, you know, that are looking for an option for them. But the Republicans working, the RNC, the Republicans holding office, they don't believe that. This is the third time they've backed this guy. So it's like, it's almost to the point where it's like, I wish that they believed what Svetnik is saying.
Yeah. And he had Svetnik had another comment I'll highlight where he admits, he goes, look, I voted for here it is. I admit that I voted for that more in 2016. It was announced that he won. I remember getting a bad feeling, thinking I made a huge mistake. I think that's key to his other question. And I didn't vote for him in 2016, but it's that permission thing where I think you're right, Alden. I think one of my big frustrations is, like, even Mitch McConnell this week said some stuff, and it's like, shut the fuck up, Mitch. We're here because of you. You know, like, and I agree with you, and I know you said it wasn't a counter to the statement, but I think what Svetnik has shared is a lived-in experience of, I didn't vote for him, but I kept that secret. You know, like, I always joke, I came out to my mother as a Democrat in like 2022, right? You know what I mean? Like, and that's not to downgrade anyone else's true, actual coming out stories that are way more important than that. But it was the same impact to my mother. Like, you can laugh at that, but that's what a lot of what the structure is, and a lot of that is structure in church. This is why I still don't shy away from saying, hey, I believe in God and I have some Christian upbringing, because I don't want anyone. I'm not going to burn it down to save the church goers. You know what I mean? I'm not going to burn down the church to get you out of there. I'm just going to try to see if you can get out of there. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of my purpose. That's why I think I like that question. Sense of, is it naive? Maybe just not. You know, there's more things going on, but it's a lived-in experience.
Yeah, 100%. He adds here, it was my second vote, and I did what my parents did and learned there to make my own choices. And that's hard, because you know, Ken, you've spoken eloquently and beautifully about your relationship with your parents and the push and pull and the periods of strife. And I've seen it with so many friends, and I've seen it with, you know, I had, you know, the person I was in a relationship with previously, we were together for 5 years. And I remember toward the end of the relationship, at one point, she told me over dinner, almost in tears, she's like, I think that you hate my dad. And I responded to her and I said, I don't hate your dad. I said, I think that you have serious problems with your dad that you don't want to face. And it was that her dad was a MAGA person and she was not. She was all the way over here in Bernie land with me and our friends. And I think that you can only put your head down and have dinner and choose not to talk about it so many times. And before it really starts to wear on somebody, because you start to have weird, like, fucked up questions in your mind of, like, okay, like, they're okay with me, and I can't even imagine being a young woman, like, you know, he loves me, but, like, does he care about any other young woman? Does he care, like, you know? And that's you know, everyone has their own version of that. Like, how far does the love extend in your family? And, like, all of that builds toward what Svetnik was talking about, of realizing sometimes you have to break with them. And hopefully it doesn't end and, like, we don't speak. But anything from, you know, I have to go my own way to I have to acknowledge that you don't have the values that I thought you did. Like, those are hard things. And I will acknowledge I'm fortunate that all I had to do was, you know, radicalize my mom from standard Dem to more of a lefty, because that was generally easier work. But yeah, there are people out there who are fighting that have to wake up and fucking fight, and that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I highlighted. I thought this was great, and great tag, great question from Osvetnik, and great just honesty about, hey, here's who I was, and I do think it's important to acknowledge growth and allow people to grow, and I'm thankful for the people in my life that did. I gave a lot of credit to Joseph Scrimshaw in our conversation. We've had an off-air conversation about it, and he's like, yeah, when we first started working, I kind of knew where you had talked about some of your leanings. I was worried. But then you continued to not show me that in you as a person. There was nothing that you did, said, or felt that I would have taken issue with. So we were fine. And we didn't talk about politics. We didn't, but then it just, after a while, when you're talking about Star Wars, it being political to its core.
Seems to come up a lot, yeah.
And I'll say, and it highlights this question by Tully, who's there in the Force Center world too. Democrats need to learn how to sell progressive policy as well as they're trying to sell Bush-era conservatism. I agree with that overall statement in the sense of I've had those moments where, again, grew up as a kid in the 80s whose grandparents were driven out of the Soviet Union, all these kind of things, a conservative Christian Reagan-era home. So communism, socialism, all those buzzwords, right? We're still dealing with that today. They've done such a good job of just turning all those words and the entire conversation around them where you can't even have conversation about the actual, Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks, and all those kind of things where you see where it goes, where you see where Lenin came in and took his own power, and you're not having those conversations in the 80s. You're just watching Rocky Balboa punch Ivan Drago, and there's been times over the years where I joked. I was reading the book on the 1912 election, perhaps the most historical significant election in our time, in our history, and set things up going forward, good and bad. And I was reading the section on Eugene Debs, the socialist candidate for president, 4 times, last time ran from prison. And it just did an introduction to him. And Alden, I just remember going, almost sinking in my chair going, am I a socialist? because it wasn't going, it was just goes, oh, here's the things he believed in 1912 and 1900 and 1890. But I remember thinking, yep, check, I like that. Check, I like that. Oh, that'd be nice. Check. And then I was like, oh, okay. And it just was marketed to me different. And I think that's maybe somewhat what Tully's saying there, where I think it would make more sense. I think a lot of it's done in terms of arguments. Oh, you don't like socialism? You drive on the road, don't you? Yeah. But now you're just fighting with me. And I think that kind of, if that's what you're talking about and meaning to going forward, then that's something that'd be valuable.
I mean, the salesmanship is important, right? Like I've talked about this on the show before, of like before Biden stepped down and everything, and when it was still very firmly going to be him. Part of my frustration was that they had done nothing to set up an alternative plan, and part of that frustration was growing up largely in the 8 years of Obama. From middle school to adulthood for me, like he was the guy, and of course flaws, and of course, like, everybody, again, we don't need to get into like all the things that all presidents do, all that stuff. But Obama, as an orator and as a presenter and as a man and as the figurehead, was like, in gaming Dungeons and Dragons terms, this guy's like a level 20 bard with like all these, like he could sell anything, and he sold whole concepts and characters and like this family and Joe Biden, like all this stuff was able to be presented to you. And the Democrats don't have that right now. They don't have, the silver-tongued person or the strategy to point out the fact. Like they'll point out sometimes, like, well, most Americans do want this, and it's like, okay, but like telling me that, like, you're kind of just speaking to those of us that are in that percentage. Like when it comes to like healthcare or paid family leave or like any of the things that we're trying to fight for, they'll be like, well, most Americans want this. And it's like, okay, well, like still, like you need to sell it to the point where they get out and fight for it, not just they like it as a concept. And that's that's hard. It's hard to translate people's wants into actions or get them to translate their own wants into their own actions.
Yeah, it's and that's one of the things. I don't know if this is a direct response. You apologize. or direct continuation of your thoughts. But this is why I fight back a little bit nowadays, or in the past I didn't, about the cynicism towards just politics in general. It's Veep is perhaps the greatest show of all time, one of them in my world, because I think it nails it, and it nails it in almost a dangerous way where it can create cynicism, not even just both sides of them, but yeah, this is a system, where rich have influence in these groups and the money, and there's all those things to talk about. But at the end of the day, I try not to lean into that when discussing it publicly, because it's not just a naive, I want to believe that a politician will help. It's just that this is the system we have, and this is it. The vote is valuable. The down ballot vote is valuable. And how do you just tell some of those folks? How do you tell the juggalos who don't want to vote that there is a person who agrees with you on all the things you just said in the video?
Yeah.
There is.
And by the way, since we last touched on them, they did endorse.
Since we last touched upon it.
Since we last did Juggalo news, the Juggalos did endorse. I also think that Ken Plume's comment here is important, and I agree with it. It's difficult to argue that the Dems need to improve their messaging when one of the fundamental issues is that the public simply can't understand nuance or complexity. It's a critical thinking issue. Yeah, it is. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I've said this, and I don't want this to sound as flippant as it might sound in text. So it's like, I really want to emphasize what I'm saying. When you have, like, when you go on social media and you get these people that, like, they can't even, like, in nerd terms, I've said it before, like, they can't grasp the fucking Clone War, and you expect me to believe that they can understand Israel and Palestine? Like, these are, like, the leaps sometimes that people make, or like the moral judgments and like all these different things. Like, if media literacy gets thrown around a lot, and I throw it around a lot because I think it's a problem. But, like, if that's in the toilet, you better believe everything else is in the toilet. Like, we're at a point now where it's like it's a microcosm of the larger issue.
Yep. This is where I would go, where after 2017 and Last Jedi being on Collider and everything, where I was like, oh, we're not just talking about Star Wars, and how you look at pop culture is also how you look at the world. It's not silly to me, and pop culture can remain silly, and you can have some frivolous, fun conversations about the pews. But that also in that there was an exchange I liked. JMB says something I've always criticized them for is that they make appeals to data and info and facts when the other side just doesn't care. They don't care. Present all day the facts you want. And Steve, my man Steve, responds: the right gets to be the right, the left has to apologize for himself. I think there's a lot of truth in that kind of that conversation there of. And it literally, I think that's also what Ken is saying, and what we've said before. And Plume, even when we're playing Fortnite, just will always say you can't talk sane to crazy. A general statement there, but yeah, that is that guy on the 23 freeway heading to the 119 that I saw in a truck covered in Trump banners and an American eagle on top of a 7-foot pole in the back of his truck, by the way. I think it's a flag pole. I got it, but there was no flag on it. But it just was like, it just was sitting and I don't know how.
Because it's like, you can't, if someone doesn't want to get it, they're not going to. And that's on every level. Like something as silly as like Boba Fett. Like one time I got into an argument about Book of Boba Fett on Twitter with somebody else in our space who shall remain nameless. And many of you saw this. And this person told me straight up in writing that Boba Fett has a no-kill rule in that show. And like he decided not to kill people. And I'm like, look, person, I am not trying to be disrespectful when I say this to you. That literally did not happen. That is not true. And the argument kept going. And it's like how it kept going after that is maybe my fault. Maybe I should have just been like, okay, we're not arguing, facts don't matter here. And I should have given up. That's on me. But like, we are at that point on everything from your entertainment all the way up to your world leaders of like, one side will say bullshit. The other side will say, well, factually this. The other side will say more bullshit. And it's like, we have that comes from, I think, in the last 2.5 decades, I think of like, we've given everybody the platform, which is great, but we've also given everybody the platform, which is bad. And saying everybody's entitled to their opinion translated slowly over the course of my generation's lifetime. Those cusp, like final millennials, us 28-year-olds, the babiest millennials,
the least
like
of us.
We realized very slowly, like, oh, everyone thinks that you're entitled to your opinion means that your opinion holds equal value. And that's not like a popular post that goes around all the time is like somebody trying to undermine literary analysis by saying maybe the door is blue because the author liked blue. And it's like, I'm sorry, that person does not get the same weight as like, the literary professor who's telling you about the experiences of that author and knows everything. But in America, they do get the same weight.
I would argue Charlie Ashby might say in the UK as well. Steve comes to this comment. I think the lack of nuance is partly a product of the right messaging. They've weaponized ignorance, not fully to play, but if it plays right in the cards. Yeah, I think that happens a lot too. It's the buzz phrase. It's the catchphrase. It's the you want to have a beer with Bush, and that's kind of the end of the analysis. A lot of great comments. You guys are doing great in comments today, by the way. Love it. I like what Cooper said here. You're entitled to your opinion, but not my intention. I like that. I like that. Scrimshaw has a great thought of, yes, I should be sympathetic to people and empathetic to people. I don't have to be it to ideas. And that's a good one too. That helped reframe some of my view of the world too.
For sure.
Good stuff. I do have to start getting a roll because I got a live Force Center to prepare for.
Hell yeah.
And I think we're going to have some I'm going to have some enchiladas for lunch. It's a big day around the house, Alden. Big day.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, this has been a great conversation, and another one that we didn't plan anything here. We went from Mick Foley to this, and I think.
And the important thing to take away from here is that Undertaker peaked at WrestleMania 29, and everything after that you can ignore. That's the takeaway here. If everybody just looks at Taker from the beginning to 29 as a fictional character only, then we'll all be so happy.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's amazing. It's
crazy. Wrestling is great.
Yeah. What we're learning is wrestling will decide this election.
Wrestling probably should decide the election. We should start framing our nations, get rid of all this, the Electoral College, and just put together the United States Booking Committee.
I like it.
We could sit together. We could create compelling storylines. I'll volunteer.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I'll be a part of it. I will get Kamala and Tim so over. People will be crying.
You're doing good running your Fed on 2K 5 or 4, right? So
I'm in the third year. We're doing great.
Oh, that's great. I think I'm going to pick that game up when I get some holiday allowance money because I'm into it.
Hell yeah. Last thing before
here comes AOC with the steel chair. My God, that's AOC's music.
Last thing I wanted to know before we go. I somehow I deleted Twitter off my phone last weekend as an experiment just to see what a couple days felt like. Okay. And I decided now I'm going to frame having Twitter as part of my day job. I'm only going to use it when I'm at the day job because it makes the day go by quicker. But right now it's not on my phone. What I did not realize is that unlike other apps like Letterboxd and different things, when you offload them or delete, then I re-downloading it logged me out of all my accounts.
Yeah.
I got back into my account and my Octo Radio account and the Casually account. I did not get back in to the Anytime account. And I'm working on getting back into it because only people that pay Elon Musk can have their text message to verification. And so this needs to have an authenticator app, which we didn't set up when we made it because it was pre-Elon's rules. So regardless, don't look for Anytime on X right now. However, you can look for Anytime on Threads. So I did want to tell our audience that. I posted on Threads today, the first Anytime thread. It is there. And I figured it is also fortuitous that way because that is where Ken is more active now. That's where Force Center is more active now, as well as Blue Sky. I have a Threads account that I haven't used since it came out, but I'm going to try to get more on there. So I'm slowly talking to our friend Nikki Kumar about it. Slowly preparing to jump ship. I said I wasn't going to because I didn't feel like having a new thing. But it's getting to the point now where it's like, it's so actively stupid and horrible that it's either Nazis or bots or Nazi bots or somebody with the worst, most brain dead fucking Ray movie take you've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I didn't think I'd ever really move off of it. I still have them all active. I'm still in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I still get a ton of news. If for breaking news, it's not reliable. I get it, but it's still the place to go. All right, what the hell's happening? Because other things aren't. But yeah, the last couple of years and last couple of weeks in that Star Wars hoopla a couple weeks ago, it was just like there's to me there's no point. Live to fight another day, someone else. So there you go. Threads is weird. I know a lot of people love Blue Sky, but if I wanted to sit in a room by myself, I'll just go do that. I don't need to be on a social media app to do that. It's so boring. It's just nothing going on there, and I don't care.
We had
40 Blue Sky followers last day. Like, what are you all doing here? What are we doing here?
What is it called on Blue Sky? Like instead of tweet, what is the verb? Is it posts?
Poots? I don't know.
Clouds.
Instagram's where I'm at most of the time to find me. So
you can find Ken on Poot at
Poots.
Cospan on Poot.
That's just the worst. It's the worst. But yeah, okay, that's it. We're out of here. Waiting for to get on the Alone app. Josh and I should have marketed that years ago. Ken Tucker's Old Man Fence. Yeah, you and Joseph post to no one on Blue Sky. How's that going?
Post to no one. You guys should post to each other on Blue Sky.
It's the most dead social media app since Vero, and I use Vero still. Vero 2.0.
Plume, from now on, only invite Ken to play Fortnite via Blue Sky.
I'll never see it. I have my Blue Sky picture is my banner is just a squirrel I found sunbathing and sleeping on a table because that's Blue Sky to me. But one day, I used to hate Gmail. I was like, Gmail's stupid. I'm sticking with Hotmail. And then the world switches. One day,
I didn't get Spotify until this year. I get made fun of for it all the time. I just got it. So
there you go. All right, we're out of here. We got to go.
Go to Force Center. Go hang out with Ken on Force Center.
Go to Force Center.
Stay right where you are.
Get your votes in. Let's do this. I know cynicism is easy to be there, but let's fight against it. All right.